first, live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Fox 12 Now. As always, I'm Greg Nibbler. Appreciate you being here. But it is Thursday at 1:30 p.m., which that means it is time for Eric G. from Around the House Northwest to join us here on the show. Eric, always so good to have you on here. And
thanks, brother.
And you know, we get to talk about a lot of the really cool things that you get to do, which is going to be coming up here in just a minute when we do the preview of Around the House Northwest. But there's something that you wanted to bring up this week that I do feel like a lot of people are thinking about right now, especially on the outside thing as the weather's slowly starting to get into fall. Painting the house, painting the outside, painting the inside, and I know this is something you wanted to cover here.
Yeah, man, it's really painting season right now. You know, you think about it, it's not 110 degrees out there where it's too hot, but we're not so late in the fall where it's rainy and it's too cool to paint, or you got rain right around the corner. So it's kind of like the prime time. There's that little bit of spring we get and that little bit of fall, which is like just the golden hours of painting.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is not that we're not going through a heat dome or anything like that to where you have to worry about that side of thing. So what, I guess if you want to start with the outside, you know, what are some different things and tips that people should be paying attention to?
You know, if you've got a house built before 1978, I recommend doing a lead paint test before you go out and do any scraping and stuff, because that can be a dangerous and expensive adventure for you if you decide to not follow that and get busted if you had lead paint. I saw this happen in Seattle probably about 15 years ago, where a painting contractor showed up. This is kind of right at the beginning of the lead paint laws out there. Scraped the outside of the 1920s home, you know, got it down onto some of the tarps, but not all of them, got some in the neighbor's yard. They filed a complaint and they had to dig up the yard and treat it like hazmat of their yard and the neighbor's yard. And that, you know, probably $10,000 painting project turned into hundreds of thousands of dollars painting project because somebody had to pay to haul that stuff off as hazardous materials.
Wow. Yeah, that's a nightmare. So definitely number one, check that. Check that.
Yeah.
See if
And
it's
I mean, the cool thing is as every year goes on, you know, we get a little bit less and less lead paint because more people are painting and it gets buried behind it. But it's that chips and stuff you want to make sure you get, because really it's kind of funny. And if you talk to a lead paint, you know, testing company, like I got a buddy that has one, former co-host of the radio show with me, he can actually go by neighborhood because you can go into a neighborhood and people bought paint locally, right? So they didn't have the home improvement stores. It was the local paint store. So you can see who had the better neighborhoods that had the better paint, or the better paint salesperson. The best paint had the lead in it back then because it was the most durable. So you can really see that some areas had it more than others.
That's crazy, just neighborhood by neighborhood like that. And there's a lot of old houses in the Northwest, so yeah, that are built before 1978. So definitely good tip right there. What else should people pay attention to?
You know, when you're out there buying paint, there is the most expensive paint you buy is the cheap paint. And this is what's funny. You know, you walk into any paint store, whether it's a home center or your local neighborhood one, doesn't matter. They have the low end paint and the high end paint. And many times if you go in and buy that cheapest paint they have, guess what? It doesn't cover as well. And then the big thing is that you might have to buy twice as much paint to do that. And by the time you buy twice as much paint, you're saving money by buying the mid-grade.
So that's I remember you talking about that before too when it comes to the paint. Like don't buy the cheap stuff because it's just it could end up costing you more.
It almost always does, and it doesn't last as long either. In our weather, you want it to hold up. And so really that is one of the big ones there on the outside, is just making sure that you buy decent paint. You have to go spend $100 a gallon, but if you get into that mid-grade stuff, you can paint and it's going to hold up and do really, really well.
Very good to know. What else? What else should people be thinking about?
Next one, don't believe the hype. And I'm talking paint and primer in one. No, it is not paint and primer in one. It is a paint that covers a little better than others, but it does not adhere any better than the paint that was in the can before they made it paint and primer in one. So if you've got wood, or you've got adhesion problems where you had bubbling and things like that on the outside of the house or even on the inside of the house, make sure that you prime it, especially if you've got like maybe you're going from a bright color to something more muted or light. Always just put a good primer up there. It will pay off, and primer is usually cheaper than the paint anyway, so you might as well get a coat up there and get a good coat started, so that way it lasts longer for you in the long run.
So don't try to try to go that route. Don't try to combine everything into one thing.
It's a great marketing tool. And if you're inside and you're painting maybe over a purple wall and making it blue, yeah, it might work a little bit better than just the regular paint. But a primer is still going to get you the best case on that. And especially if you're going over raw materials like wood or drywall or any kind of siding like that, just prime it, do it right. And even on the outside, if you put up new siding or anything like that was pre-primed, I still recommend you put a primer up on it first, just to make sure that you've got the adhesion correct. And then I recommend using the same brand of primer as the paint, so you know that they work well together.
That's a really good tip right there. So don't necessarily go for the one that's on super sale, but doesn't match your paint. Yeah, it would make sense if it's the same brand that it matches up together.
Yeah, and by the way, at the end of the month, here's a super sale for you, and this is going to be the tip of the day for everybody. You know, Metro Paint, that's where all of your paint gets recycled, right? And if you take it down to Metro, it ends up, and you donate it down there to them at their hazardous waste material facility. It goes to Metro Paint, and they make it into paint. At the end of the month, they're going to have a big sale, and their specialty colors, they're going to be giving away 40 gallons of paint to people at the end of the month. So
whoa,
check out Metro Paint. You can get 40 gallons of exterior paint or interior. It's the same thing for them. And if you like one of their specialty colors, you can paint your house for materials for free with the paint.
That's a really good tip. Where do you, it's okay. I'll ask more about that later, but that's, yeah. Okay.
Free paint. I mean, come on,
paint.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm all over that.
Yeah.
I like free. So that's a really good deal.
And it's good for the environment too, because you're taking other people's, waste paint and you're reusing it. And what not a good deal is, that's a killer deal for paint.
Yeah, that is definitely a good deal. All right, so so any other tips on that?
Yeah, really going out, when you go out and do your caulking before you do the painting, make sure to go around all the windows and trim and stuff when you're on the outside. Get a really good caulking. Don't get that cheap painter's caulk on the outside. Make sure you get something that flexes really well, because in our climate in the summertime, it's hot and it dries out. Things move around a lot. There's a caulking that I use a lot that works really well in our area the best. It's called Big Stretch. And you can sit there and stretch it. It's made by Sashco. It's my favorite brand of caulking around here, because you can caulk it once and it'll last you years and years and years. And
Nice.
It's not much more money than just the cheap stuff. So it's a good way to go. Spend a little more on that. And you get that at like a lot of paint stores, Lowe's, that kind of stuff.
Okay. Very, very good recommendation.
And then the other tip I got is just use good brushes and rollers. Buy quality stuff. Don't buy the cheapy throwaway ones. If you really want to have those lines good when you hand paint stuff, get the right materials, buy it once, treat it good. It'll last you years. I know guys that have 8 or 10 years on a brush out there because they took care of it over the years. If you buy it once, buy it good, it'll last you a long time.
There you go. And just take care of it. Make sure you clean it out, I would imagine. And
yeah.
All that.
Yeah, don't let it all dried up. And if it does, you can buy brush cleaner and stuff and restore it if you have to. But if you treat it right the first time and don't let stuff get too dried up on it, you'll be gold.
Nice. I don't know if there's any more tips from this side, if you want to talk about what's coming up this weekend.
Well, just on the outside, that's outside of the home. On the inside, just make sure you pay attention to sheens really well when you're doing stuff, and make sure that you actually go buy, if you're going to change colors, go down and get a sample size of it before you go buy a bunch of paint. Get up 4 or 5 different colors, put it on the wall, see how it looks. Because when you look at that little paint chip, it looks very deceiving when you're looking at something the size of a postage stamp versus maybe doing a 24 by 24 area on a wall so you can actually see what it does. Many times I've picked out colors for projects that I'm working on. This is perfect. I put it on the wall and go, wow, that doesn't work in the environment that's in, and they end up changing it. It's much easier to just paint over the top of those test areas. So work with the samples. They're your best friend.
Gotcha. Yep, that's another great idea. So test that, throw it up on the wall, see if you actually do like it.
Yeah, hang around, see if it works with the furnishings inside the house or outside, if it plays off with the grass and the lawn care and stuff you got going out there. Make sure it works. And it might look good in the morning, but it might not look as great in the afternoon. So just take a look at it in different lights and see how it plays with it.
Nice. All right. Let's talk about Around the House Northwest coming up this weekend. I know, as always, you've got a ton of stuff on the plate. So what did you get up to for this one?
Man, we got a jam-packed show. I think we got 8 or 9 segments in this one, so we've got a lot going on. So we've got our Made in Northwest segment. I went out to JB Instant Lawn. So that's a sod company down in Silverton, Oregon. And we watched them growing, basically taking seed and going around and doing sod. So you can literally roll out a lawn and have a beautiful sod lawn really quickly. So I learned a lot out there. I was surprised at the work that they had to do to make, sod. They do that once a year. So really they plant it and you get a year's worth of growth when you roll that sod out.
Wow, a year's worth of growth? That's crazy.
Yeah.
And you just
so they get everything, and then what's crazy too is just how much prep. So the stuff they're planting now, they're harvesting, next late summer, fall for next year. So they really got to stay ahead of the game with that. So there's a lot of work on getting that. And they go from seed, they've got their own seed out there, and they go all the way through sod. So it was really cool. And then we go in and do my backyard makeover and get that wrapped up. So I teamed up with my friends over at the Bark Boys. We brought in 26 cubic yards of topsoil for the backyard. And I tell you what, didn't have to use a wheelbarrow or a power tool. They actually went in and used one of those blower trucks and actually blew it in. So all the semi truck full of dirt was in there, leveled out in about 90 minutes. And that would have taken me 3 days with a wheelbarrow and a lot of trips to the chiropractor.
Yeah, that is a lot of shoveling right now. I've got quite a bit of bark chips that I ordered, but I have to wheelbarrow those because I did not have that done where I could blow them in. It's still sitting there waiting for me to do that work. I love that. That is great.
Oh my gosh, that is the easy button. And if your time is of any value at all, that's the way to go. And then on my dog area where I got the dogs, we did about 24 yards of cedar chips, which is what my arborist said I needed around those trees anyway. So it's kind of a good place for the pets to play, and it's good for the trees and bushes as well. So it's just a good control for that, and it keeps everything happy.
Nice. And this is all coming up on this week's episode. Just those.
Oh yeah,
those
that's
two
just a
plus.
little bit of that. So yeah, we've got so much more as well on the show. We're testing out some tools and stuff. When you have those multi-tools, one of my favorite tools in the shop, I go out and I buy 2 blades at the home improvement store. It could be 25 or 30 bucks. And so I jumped on Amazon and said, I could buy 100 for 12 bucks. How good are they? Let's find out.
Yeah, and so that I love that. I love stress testing things just to see what's going to happen, if they actually work, if they're worth it. Well,
Yeah.
and again, this is all on this week's episode, and you mentioned that's a small part of everything that's going to be on this week's episode. So lots of stuff to check out.
Yeah, we also help people navigate a lumberyard. So if you think about it, so many people for their first time to a lumberyard, they get overwhelmed, right, in the mistakes that they make. So we went out to a lumberyard and talked to them and talked about the mistakes that homeowners make going in there and how to best use your time dealing with those experts that deal with that stuff every single day.
Nice. Well, and that's, again, coming up. I want to let everybody know how to watch this week's episode.
You got it 10 a.m. on Fox 12 Plus on Saturdays. And then Sundays, we do at 6 o'clock for a replay. And then Fridays at 8 a.m. So all on Fox 12 Plus. So tomorrow morning, you can catch last week's episode if you missed it on Fox 12 Plus at 8 a.m.
Nice. Eric, it is always so good to talk to you. And plus, I just want to emphasize, too, that's just a few of the segments, a couple of the segments coming up in this week's
It's
episode.
that much of the show. We hit everything this week.
Tiny amount. So lots to learn, lots to watch for. And as always, great to see you. And thanks for joining me here every week.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it. Can't wait for next week.
Absolutely. And for everybody watching, too, you know what? I'm just going to stay right here. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate everybody joining us. So I'm going to be back at 3 p.m. today, because you may remember, you probably remember, or at least heard about somebody talking about the big weather balloon that was over the skies here of the Northwest.
Yeah.
People were freaking out about that. What is it? Turns out it was just a weather balloon, but it's from a company out in Tillamook called Near Space Corporation. And I've got the president of that company joining us to talk about what it is that they're doing. Are we going to see more of these things, and just the tech behind what it is, and the fact that they're a local company experimenting with all of this high altitude stuff. It's kind of exciting. So we're going to discuss that. So that's coming up at 3 p.m. for everybody to tune in and join us. So definitely come back for that. And as always, you can watch all of Eric's segments and my segments at the Fox 12 Oregon YouTube channel. There's also we're also on the app. There's a Fox Now button on there. You can press that. So lots of ways to catch up with us. And of course, there's always KPTV.com. So thanks everyone for tuning in. Eric, thank you. And I'll talk to everybody pretty soon. I'm Greg Nibble. This is Fox 12 Now.